Yeah, this is on the biosynthesis. Yeah, bro, why do we pick this terrible theme? No, botany low-key is sick. The often repeated claim that Sarpaganda appears in a 1000 BCE Hindu manuscript or in the Charka Samhita is usually repeated without an exact chapter and verse. A historical review notes that Kartik Chandra Bose specifically denied that Ralvolthia could be clearly identified in the traditional Ayurvedic. All right, I'll read this abstract. Oh, this the whole thing. This is huge. All right, let me keep going. Is Ayurveda? Is that the? Let's see. Ayurveda is an alternative medicine system with its historical roots in the Indian subcontinent. It is heavily practiced throughout India and Nepal, where it's a report using. Okay, all right. This is too deep of a rabbit hole. All right, but Ayurveda just means It's kind of uh, whatever. Ancient medical wisdom, I guess. Jane QQ? No way. Dude, I knew that the Janes were gonna be. I knew it, bro. Jane Quantum? This is sick, dude. Jane Quantum, bro. Let's see, do they have stuff on medicine? I knew that, like, the second that we started getting into this stuff, I knew it was gonna be the Janes, man. They just have it. They always have, like, the mulakati, or root drug section. I can't read Sanskrit. I have no idea what this is saying. The Charaka Samhita is a Sanskrit text on Ayurveda. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's the Indian traditional medicine. Is the text still around? Like, was it lost or is it around? Okay, I mean, uh, this is basically all wrong. Um, uh, um, I love just getting so deep into this random stuff because it's like so interesting. I have like 9 more hours to work on this, so I feel like it makes sense to go hard in this. The cleanest way to tell the story is to separate three different things that are often blurred together. Traditional use of a Ralvolfia type root preparation. Modern medical use of standardized Ralvolfia serpentina extracts. Use of pure Reserpine, which did not exist as an isolated drug until 1952. The real medical history. Traditional South Asian medicine. Roots later identified with Sarpaganda were used in South Asian medical traditions for conditions including snakebite, fever, bowel illness, sleeplessness, agitation, and mental disturbance. But the very ancient history is botanically uncertain. A Sanskrit drug name does not function like a modern species name, and different plants can be called by the same name in different regions or periods. Historical writers have connected Sarpaganda with ancient texts, but the exact identification as the modern Ralvolfia serpentina is disputed. Secure medieval Sanskrit materia medica. I've never heard this term before. Materia medica. Okay. So wait, I'm gonna close this stuff. Dude, I like this. Jane Quantum, dude. This is so sick. Okay. Post canonical literature. German. Interesting. Okay. Alright, so roots later identified with sarpaganda were used in South Asian medical traditions for conditions, but the very ancient history is botanically uncertain. A Sanskrit drug name does not function like a modern species name in different parts. Historical writers have connected sarpaganda with ancient texts, but the exact identification as modern Rauvolfia serpentina is disputed. Prakash Tandon. Wait. Yeah, yeah. Oh no, Poggle, not Poggle. Wait, how? Pagla. Poggle. Poggle. It should probably be हम पागल हैं हम पागल हैं पागल दावा plant speciation is kind of interesting, right? Because it's not like um it's different than animal speciation, but that's for sure. I guess is what. Because typically when you talk about speciation, you're always talking about animals. All right. Is that what it's Sarpaganda? Sarpaganda Nakuli. It is possible that ancient references uh, it is possible that ancient references to a root concoction called Sarpaganda nakuli may have been the Wolfia serpentina species. But there's no definitive evidence. However, it is possible that the use of the root has been used medicinally for millennia. Uh, the earliest definitive written analysis of the species occurred, and then now we got to get to that part of the history. I think why this appeals to me is it's like you're taking this single molecule and you're looking through a window, millennia. You know, you're looking through this window. Um, someone random messaged me. I feel like people just like okay, whatever. I don't even know who that was. I don't even know who that was. Okay. Wait, where's my channel? What the fuck? Alright. Alright. So yeah, 19th and early 20th centuries. Alkaloidal substances were reported in raw wolfia in the late 19th century. Yeah, okay, so. Alright. I don't know how many of these sources I'm gonna keep. Hold on, I gotta get some more water. Wolfia serpentina. Wolfia serpentina. Okay. Alright. Um, it would actually be really fun to take, you know, whatever, 20 molecules and just peer back through the window of history. You see how tribal knowledge. Let's see if I can. Let me see if I can fork this. There we go. It seems like a very interesting way to look at history, or constrained view of history through the lens of, I guess the field is called ethnobotany, but rather, I mean, just um, traditional medicine, but also just how how knowledge of molecules contributed to the development of modern science. And I would be interested to know if there's any books that sort of take this approach, and also what other molecules or medicines or traditions are similarly storied as Reserpine, because it seems like there is a lot of them, and they all probably have very interesting stories. Or at least I find this Reserpine thing really interesting. What? What the fuck? What? That was weird. This is the big one. This is the important one. Alright, so this is probably the Indian Rauwolfia research led to the evolution of neuropsychopharmacology in the 2000 Nobel Prize. Okay, that's pretty sick. Okay, so 40 so let's just say like 30s we have separated alkaloids. Then in 49 we have a clinical study. This paper persuaded many physicians outside India that the drug produced a real reproducible fall in blood pressure. Okay, but this was not pure Reserpine. So then the question was to do this, what do they call it? Bioassay guided fractionation. So this is Mueller, pure Reserpine, which was the at SIBA. Is SIBA still around? SIBA acquired by We Create Chemistry. Whoa, this is a big company. They barely make any money though. That's the crazy part. Tiny margins. 110,000. This is a big company. Bass. German for Baden, Aniline, and soda factory? That's crazy. Aniline and soda factory. Largest chemical producer in the world. I didn't know that. Chemicals, plastics, performance chemicals, catalysts, coatings, crop technology, crude oil, and natural gas. Damn, they do it all. I've literally never heard of this company. Okay, cool. That's super interesting. Um, about 40 natural products. Oh, this is nothing. That's so awesome, dude. That seems like an awesome book. Okay. Okay. Um, so wait, so Seba's owned by BASF now. Okay. But only from here onward is it historically precise to say that physicians were treating patients with Reserpine itself. Reserpine became important for two major uses: blood pressure and psychosis. It appeared at almost the same historical moment as chlorpromazine and contributed to the beginning of modern psychopharmacology. Early psychiatric studies compared the two drugs directly. Oh, wow. Its larger historical importance may now be scientific rather than therapeutic. Experiments with Reserpine helped establish that monoamine neurotransmitters such as dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin are stored in intracellular vesicles, and that disturbing this storage profoundly alters behavior and physiology. So I still needed to do so. Uh, why, what, how, who, what. There's a lot, taking a molecule and studying its history in depth. There's a lot there. I think this one I need to read. I wish you could put a little star here on important ones. Because, the thing about a linear chat is that some of the messages are just not even close to as important as the other. Okay. All right. All right, so here we go. Could the Charaka Samhita discuss Sarpaganda? It is possible in the broad historical sense, but has not been securely demonstrated. A number of 12th century medical histories repeat the claim that Wolfia serpentina under the name Sarpaganda occurs in the Charaka Samhita. The difficulty is that these accounts often do not provide an exact Sanskrit verse, a chapter and section, a description detailed enough to identify the plant botanically, an explanation for why the word must mean Wolfia serpentina rather than another plant. The text contains a plant under another synonym that physicians later identified as Sarpaganda. The responsible statement is the association of Sarpaganda with the Charaka Samhita is possible and frequently repeated, but an exact botanically secure identification of modern Wolfia serpentina in the text remains uncertain. The Charaka Samhita is not a lost work. A substantial Sanskrit text has been transmitted through manuscripts, commentaries, printed editions, and translations, and it remains one of the foundational surviving works of Ayurveda. But we do not possess Charaka's original physical manuscript. Oh, wow. That is normal for ancient South Asian literature. Palm leaf and birch bark manuscripts decay and must be recopied repeatedly. What survives is a manuscript edition. Later, handwritten copies descended through generations of copying, comparison, commentary, and correction. Traditional and scholarly accounts describe this sequence. Teachings of Punarvasu Agreya, Agnivesa Tantra, Charaka's redaction, Tribal. I don't know how to even say it. I don't actually know in Sanskrit what the dots mean. I don't know anything about that. Norepinephrine is literally adrenaline, right? Or is that epinephrine? Okay, wait. Norepinephrine is 3,4-dihydroxy. I don't know. What's the UPAC name for this? I don't even know. R4. Four? Oh, four. Okay, okay. One, two, three, four. Okay, so one, okay, 1, 2, dial. Okay, got it. All right. But then what is adrenaline? Oh, it's just a methyl. That's it. It's an N-methyl. Is that what it's gonna be? It's gonna be called. They just do this. Honestly, a UPAC is like iffy. But okay, whatever. Wait, I wanted to know about this thing though. Diacritics. Arda, da, na. Sha, 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 sha. Retroflex. Arda. Hub. Bala. I don't know how to do this. I don't even know why I'm trying. I mean, there's a guy who does the food history stuff, and he always does the work to learn how to say the thing. And it's like, that's actually really good. I like it. That's not what I'm doing here, but I wish I had the time. All right, so let's go through. What I said, give a full timeline. Oh, is that because this? No. All right, so let's try to find. Okay, so wait. Find me the Vacal 1949 clinical study original source. Doop, doop, doop. I hope it doesn't treat that thing weird. Wait, when was Woodward's synthesis? 56. That's not even the right paper, though. Yeah, okay, so the real paper comes out in 1958. But they completed the paper. Okay, well, I don't want to get too into the weeds. I'm going to say 1958. Okay, but then how is it that they were still determining? Wow. So fucking cool, man. Um, or not Reserpine, I'll say R. Serpentina. Um, Clinical study. I don't know what you say. Um, yeah, books, papers, Reserpine. Actually, let's just do this for right now, because I'm gonna be doing this a lot. I want to see how accessible the writing is. Wait, what was up with that? What is this? Are these the pages? Oh, okay. I just want to read the intro. In a casual perusal of papers on hypertension, one comes across well over 100 so-called hypotensive remedies alleged to possess the property of lowering the blood pressure. In 1930, Amen could collect over 200 reports on the successful treatment of hyperpesia by various hypotensive remedies. In the view of the persistently high mortality from hypertension, in spite of the large number of measures recommended in the treatment of this disease, one is forced to admit the futility or helplessness of the situation. In Amen's opinion, the proper treatment is still unknown. Evans and Launen, after a critical analysis and trial of 33 different preparations in 70 cases of high blood pressure, were forced to admit the uselessness of them all. In their opinion, simple sedative measures are often more effective than the much more expensive and fashionable products extensively displayed on the market. There's unfortunately a great tendency on the part of both the medical profession and the laity to hail or applaud any new drug or measure introduced into the market. Better than the Beatles. Often on the basis of a few stray experiences or clinical impressions. In consequence of this attitude, many of the present-day clinicians have not learned to accept any claim. In consequence of this attitude, many of the present-day clinicians have learned not to accept any claim for a new remedy unless and until its therapeutic value has been firmly established by resort to carefully controlled clinical observations. My selection of R. serpentina for the present study has not been entirely fortuitous. I have been prompted into the present inquiry by several factors. In the short span of 10 years that the dried root of R. serpentina has been on the market in India in tablet form, there has been a growing demand in this country for these tablets. Preparations of the serpentina root have gained such unprecedented popularity for hypertension cases in this country that there is hardly a patient with high blood pressure who has not been subjected to its effects in one form or another. One manufacturing firm alone claims to have sold over 50 million tablets of the dried root. One of the aims of the present investigations has therefore been to determine if the enthusiastic reception of the drug is warranted. As early as 1948, As early as 1940, I had made the following allusion to the subject of R. serpentina treatment in cases of hypertension. After a trial of this preparation, one finds it useful in a percentage of cases of hypertension only. The indications and suitability of the case for the drug have not as yet been worked out. Since that time, I have had the opportunity of observing the effects of this drug in a very large number of cases. After an extensive trial of various hypotensive remedies in several thousand cases of hypertension, both in private hospital practice during the last 10 years, I have found R. serpentina to be the most consistently successful member of the whole group of hypotensive remedies. In reply to a recent questionnaire issued to me by 50 physicians from all over India, 46 voted for R. serpentina as being the best hypotensive in their experience. Dude, this is so sick. His writing is so clear. Who is this guy? This guy must have been a big baller. I mean, this paper is so readable. It's kind of amazing. All right. In view of this overwhelming body of support in favor of regarding R. serpentina as the remedy of choice, I have considered it opportune to study this preparation to a more critical analysis and to try and form an unbiased opinion of its value as a hypotensive agent. In the present investigation, I have tried to steer clear of those fallacies involved in the interpretation of therapeutic results to which particular attention has been drawn by Amen, Kaepernick, and others. There's an unfortunate tendency to claim success in the treatment of essential hypertension merely on the basis of symptomatic improvement. In the opinion of Amen, the successful treatment of hyperpesia implies the necessity a substantial reduction in the level of blood pressure. In Kaepernick's opinion, although symptomatic response is relatively easily obtained, reduction of blood pressure is difficult. This has been the experience also of Evans and Loughnan, who found that although good symptomatic relief can be obtained in cases of hypertension with a large number of remedies, the much more desirable hypotensive effect is rarely noted. It should be capable of both of reducing a blood pressure that is high and of maintaining it at the lowered value. It should be able to exhibit its hypotensive action consistently and in a high proportion of patients, and it should be free of all toxic ill effects. The use of vegetable extracts in the treatment of high blood pressure is not new. Both watermelon seeds and the mistletoe plant have been tried in the past without gaining general endorsement. In 1939, Graham had reported benefit in cases of hypertension from use of the tincture of hawthorn. R. serpentina, known as Sarpaganda, Chandrika, Chota Chand, Chandra, Dhanmarna, Dhanbarua, Patala Gandhi, and Kovanamil Pori. Or the serpentina plant is a large climbing or twining herb or shrub belonging to the natural order Apocynaceae. Apo means synapomorphy. Apo, I think, means away. Away. Syna probably means... I don't know what that means. Oh yeah, so it has nothing to do with... Okay, so it's... Huh. Dogbane? I've never even heard of that. Cardiac glycoside. We learned, I think just today we learned about what a glycoside is, but I don't remember. Um, where's my book? Here we go. You know, when's the last time you really read when you read a paper? You know, it's a good exercise to be able to read complex new work. It's kind of like working out, I think. Strain your brain. Um, okay. The root of this plant has been wait, hold on. And found in the Himalayas, in Assam, Pegu, Tenasserim, Java, the Deccan Peninsula, and the Malaya Peninsula. The root of this plant has been popular both in India and the Malay Peninsula from ancient times as an antidote to the stings and bites of insects and poisonous reptiles. It has also been used as a febrifuge, as a stimulant to uterine contractions, for insomnia, and most of all for insanity. Most recently, its clinical application has been extended with success to cases of high blood pressure. Early researches on R. serpentina showed that it contained an alkaloid which was provisionally called pseudobrucine. On account of its popularity with practitioners of indigenous medicine, the chemical composition of the serpentina plant has been subjected to considerable scrutiny. Sen and Bose discovered two alkaloids in its root. Okay, so 1931, Bose and Sen. The total alkaloid content being about 1% of the dried root. There being also a lot of resin and starch. Siddiqui and Siddiqui found, besides phytosterol, oleic acid, and unsaturated alcohols, 5 alkaloids which were classified by them into 2 groups. The ajmaline group of 3 white crystalline weak bases. Ajmalinine, um, um, ajmalysine, and the serpentine group of yellow crystalline stronger bases, serpentine and serpentinine. On the basis of experiments on frogs, Siddiqui and Siddiqui showed that the ajmaline group acts as a general depressant to the heart, respiration, and central nervous system, while the serpentine group causes paralysis of respiration, depression of nerves, and stimulation of the heart. Sen and Bose studied the pharmacological effects of the R. serpentina alkaloids on cats and other higher animals. They reported a small drop in blood pressure, a stimulation of Roy found that large doses induce sleep, cause dulling of sensations, and diminution. Diminution. What am I? Am I crazy? Oh, diminution. Yeah, and diminution. Diminution. That's a good word, actually, of reflexes. It is claimed by certain manufacturers that the root from a well-reared and scientifically cultivated serpentina plant yields about 3 times more of the active alkaloids than root from the wild plant, which is thinner, more stunted, and often marred by exposure to the sun, rain, and frost. On the basis of experimental and clinical studies, the root of R. serpentina is said to have the following pharmacological attributes. When was this? This was 1949. So a vague reference to the use of a tincture or alcoholic extract of the root of R. serpentina uh, made by. Okay. Damn, look at how nice this table is formatted, bro. This is great. They have a plot? They have no plot. It definitely has an effect. Wait, I want to read the methods actually. Um, I don't care about the selection of patients, but I do care about the administration. Um, wait. Okay, this is cool. I mean, I like the intro. Why is quinine? Why is quinine so? Oh wait. Oh my! I'm thinking of quinone. Hmm. Tonic water? Really? Queen. That's wild. Huh. Okay. All right. So that was really really interesting. Okay, Reserpine works by emptying monoamine storage vesicles. It does not mainly block a receptor, and it does not stop neurons from making neurotransmitters directly. Think of a monoaminergic nerve terminal as having a factory in the cytoplasm that makes neurotransmitter, a warehouse, the synaptic vesicle, that stores it safely, and a loading machine, VMAT2, that moves it into the warehouse. It being the neurotransmitter, presumably. What VMAT2 normally does: dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin are synthesized in the cytoplasm, but they cannot safely remain there in large amounts. A proton pump uses ATP to make the inside of each synaptic vesicle acidic. VMAT2 then exploits that proton gradient, exchanging vesicular protons for cytoplasmic monoamine molecules. Okay, so reserpine enters the nerve terminal and binds extremely tightly to the central substrate binding pocket of VMAT, especially VMAT2 in neurons. So, how does this have anything to do with hypertension? Historically, the binding has been described as irreversible. More precisely, it is so tight and long-lived that its physiological effect behaves as nearly irreversible on the relevant timescale. Recovery depends substantially on production and trafficking of functional transporter protein. I don't even know what that means. What happens to the neurotransmitters? The neuron continues making monoamines in the cytoplasm, but it cannot package them efficiently. Cytoplasmic monoamines are then exposed to monoamine oxidase, which metabolizes them. The neurotransmitter already stored in vesicles is gradually released or lost, but the vesicles cannot be properly refilled. Dim. What is this word? Dim. Bro, where is that paper? Did I already close it? Diminution. Diminish. Diminution. Where am I writing? Diminution. Many synaptic vesicles are already docked and primed at the presynaptic membrane before the action potential arrives. The sequence is the action potential reaches the nerve terminal. Depolarization opens voltage-gated calcium channels. Calcium enters. Calcium activates the fusion machinery. Vesicles fuse with the membrane and release neurotransmitter into the synaptic cleft. Neurotransmitter activates receptors on the postsynaptic cell, producing a postsynaptic potential. With Reserpine, the action potential itself still travels down the presynaptic neuron normally, and calcium-triggered vesicle fusion can still occur. The problem is that the vesicles contain far less dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. So it's a diminution of chemical synaptic transmission. So the result is diminution of chemical synaptic transmission. Okay, so now what we need to know is how does this cause antihypertensive symptoms? And how is it related to antipsychotics? Reserpine lowers blood pressure and can reduce psychosis through the same basic action, monoamine depletion, but in different neural circuits. Why it lowers blood pressure? Your sympathetic nervous system normally uses norepinephrine to maintain vascular tone. Mm. Modern antipsychotics, dopamine is released. D2 receptors are blocked or partially activated. So reserpine removes much of the message, whereas drugs such as haloperidol block the receiver. So the problem with reserpine was that it was indiscriminate. Basically, and so so if you look at VMAT2, so VMAT, yeah, so that's a good point. VMAT2 stands for vesicular monoamine transporter 2. And it's a protein. It's of type protein. So is of type protein. VMAT2 is an integral membrane protein that transports monoamines, particularly neurotransmitters such as dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, and histamine, from cellular cytosol into synaptic vesicles. Three 2-aminoethyl, 1H, indole 5-all. Okay. Monoamine neurotransmitters are neurotransmitters and neuromodulators that contain one amino group connected to an aromatic ring by a 2-carbon chain. Oh, specifically, monoamine neurotransmitters are ethylamines. Huh. Okay. That's kind of wild. Dihydroxyphenethylamine. Wow. Okay, we're getting deep into the weeds here. Let's keep going. I feel like I understand the mechanism of action pretty well. So I would say the only thing we need a little bit more of is some of the critical structure elucidation stuff. Because structure elucidation is definitely the missing part of my timeline. So this is what I have in my timeline now. So let's just do when. So when oh wait, did we find this 1980s? Erste Verslag van het onderzoek naar de plantstoffen van Nederlandse-Indië. Bro, I bet this was commissioned by the freaking Dutch East India Company. Wow, they have the original paper? Let's see what this thing looks like. Damn. Is it in English or no? No, it's in Dutch. How long is this thing? It's 134 pages? If I upload this PDF, do you think it'll be able to... Oh, wow. 53 to 59. But, that's not really going to help me that much. Wow, they did that in 1890? That's pretty insane. Foundational systematic chemical study usually cited for demonstrate... Okay. Demonstrates... I don't want to read this paper. I don't know. What is the difference between psychopharmacology and neuropsychopharmacology? Is that not the same thing? Shouldn't it? Oh, this is a plus. Wait, plus. Okay, maybe. Looks weird. Okay, so let me write down the procedure. So, okay, bark alcohol extraction. We're looking for, R2N. So some sort of R2NH or something. I don't know. R3N. I don't. Oh, R3N. Okay. So now it's soluble in the alcohol, I guess. So then treat the tincture with acid. So now we get R3N plus H3O plus goes to reversibly R3NH plus OH or H2O, and the R3NH plus soluble in water more than ether. So then extract again. Then add sodium carbonate to neutralize back to the tertiary amine. Which is the free base. So we got the free base. I don't actually know what that term means. No one really talks about that in OChem. But you hear it all the time in like colloquial. Um, this and a few tests. Okay. Now I want to look at um, give a full timeline. Bro, why did it do that? On structure elucidation. Okay, so here is the story. Yes, this is what I want to know. Is what happened between 1952 and 1956? Do I have the Mueller paper? Wait, 1952 is what I'm looking for. Wait, is this the one? No, this is a review article. I want this paper. Is this uh is it? I don't even know if this is the right paper. They just kind of downloaded. One page, is that it? All right. Okay, here we go. From powdered roots to crystalline reserpine. So oleoresin is not a pure chemical. It's a resin with a lot of stuff in it. Um, okay. Our Serpentina roots had long-standing use in South Asian medicine. Alkaloidal material had been recognized by the late 19th century, so that's a allude to Gresshoff, the Dutch paper. Crystalline alkaloids were isolated in the 1930s. Hypotensive activity of root act reported in 1933. I don't know what paper that is. 1947, Indian investigators located a hypnotic or sedative principle. The pure crystalline alkaloid called reserpine was then isolated by Mueller, Schittler, and Bean. Bein, I don't know, in 1952. This was essentially an early form of bioassay guided fractionation. Make an extract, divide it into fractions, test the fractions in animals, and continue purifying the active fraction. They did not have a molecular target such as BMAT2 available as an assay. They looked for whole animal, physiological effects such as sedation and blood pressure reduction. A representative extraction process. Contemporary patent procedures describe the isolation logic in considerable detail. Oh wow, we have a patent here. Is this by them? Oh wow. Oh, so once they got the patent, they published the paper. No, but no. They published a paper in 52, so that's okay. So this is the Mueller patent. Very interesting. What does it look like? Very interesting. I've never read a patent application before. This might be a good one to read, just to get an idea of what's going on. Open this back up. Just a little. Okay. Ground roots could be repeatedly extracted with methanol. The methanol was removed, leaving a dark residue. Petroleum ether extraction removed much of the fat and waxes. The remaining material what is the what is that paper? Oh. Okay, so they got 70 grams of Reserpine, and then what did they do? I wonder how many papers have been written about Reserpine. Dude, this stuff is so cool. I love this stuff. All right, so I need to know more about this. So, okay, let me think about this. So, the first step, the broad stroke steps are, one, you need to actually purify to a single compound. Then two, they found molecular formula. I guess, by or molecular formula ratios by combustion. And the third thing they did was use some test called the Zeisel to get N-methoxy equal to 6. Reserpine has one normally titratable tertiary amine. The indole nitrogen is essentially non-basic under those conditions. If 1 mole of acid neutralizes 1 mole of reserpine, then its acid-base equivalent weight approximates its molecular weight. What does that mean? The Constitution des Reserpines. Is it still going? Damn. Oh, this is so sick, man. To understand history like this is just so killer. A landmark, complete academic history of Reserpine. A literally exhaustive timeline is not possible in one response. It became a so thousands of papers use it. Damn, bro, that's crazy. I mean, I guess that makes sense, but that's nuts. I was thinking it was gonna be like 100. I mean, I think that's the biggest lesson is like you take something that you think is small and you realize how big it is. What follows is complete in the useful scholarly sense. It includes every major change in what researchers understood about the plant, molecule structure, synthesis, clinical effects, neurochemistry, molecular target, and biosynthesis. Before 1952, researchers studied sarpaganda, Rauwolfia root, extract oleoresins, and mixed alkaloids. After 1952, they could study pure reserpine. Reserpine affected at least 5 fields: natural product chemistry, organic synthesis and stereochemistry, hypertension treatment, psychopharmacology and monoamine neuroscience, and plant biosynthesis and synthetic biology. All right. Before reserpine was an individual molecule. Yeah, here we go. So, ancient and medieval South Asian medicine. First millennium BC onward, possible but disputed ancient references. Later writers associated the Sanskrit drug name sarpaganda with ancient Indian medicine and sometimes specifically with the Charaka Samhita. Samhita. I don't know how to say any of that stuff. The roots were traditionally associated with the treatment of snake bite poisoning, fever, intestinal illness, sleeplessness, agitation, and mental disturbance. The historical caution is important. The ancient or classical name cannot be unambiguously equated with the modern Linnaean species of Rauwolfia serpentina. Exact botanical identification is difficult, and the often repeated claim of a specific Charaka Samhita passage usually lacks a reproducible chapter. Okay, we know this. All right. Late 19th century chemical investigation. Alkaloidal constituents reported. Greshov reported alkaloidal principles in Rauwolfia. This reframed the root pharmacology. Its effects might be attributable. So, what was the indication then that it's? I mean, what I want to know is so what was the intuition or indication, or how did they have any sense that there was a relationship between the presence of alkaloids and any sort of therapeutic or bioactive effect? I mean, was that common knowledge, or how, how did they have an indication that the presence of alkaloids, or just any, basically this basic activity, this thing that makes it seem like it acts as a base, this procedure? By 1980, this was already a very strong empirical pattern, not a theory that bases must be medicinal, but many of the most powerful known plant medicines and poisons had turned out to contain basic nitrogen-containing compounds. Okay. The substance basically must be therapeutic. It was that medicinal poisonous plant, extractable organic base, promising candidate for the active principle. Interesting. All right, good. Okay, so 1980, Gresham reports alkaloidal principle. Okay, this reframed the root pharmacologically. Its effects might be attributable to separable nitrogen-containing substances rather than to one undifferentiated herbal preparation. All right, Indian chemistry and pharmacology, 1931 to 1949. Yeah, 49 was a big year. Okay, so in 1931, Siddiqui and Siddiqui isolate Rauwolfia alkaloids. They isolated several crystalline alkaloids from R. serpentina, including compounds in the adjmaline and serpentine families. They did not isolate reserpine. A major reason is chemically revealing. Reserpine is an unusually weak base and remained disproportionately in the dark resinous oleoresin fraction instead of behaving like the more strongly basic alkaloids extracted by conventional acid-base procedures. Material that might ordinarily have been regarded as unattractive resinous residue turned out to contain the most historically important sedative constituent. Interesting. Was this the Tandra? Oh, yeah, Pradeepa Roy. I actually got a ton of citations. Wait, Roy P? Dude, come on. That's like a joke, right? Okay. Okay. Um, so then what did they do? How did this change things? I don't know. Okay, so 2 years later, in 1933, hypotensive activity was demonstrated experimentally. Chopra, Gupta, and Mukherjee reported blood pressure lowering effects. Okay, so now they're starting to test it in the clinic. And so now they're just sort of trying it on lots of stuff. So in the 30s to the 40s, Indian clinical and animal work expands. Indian physicians and pharmacologists have investigated sedation and sleep, agitation and psychotic behavior, CV effects. Later international accounts often understated the extent of this Indian work. Yeah, I mean I feel like that checks out. 1947, the sedative principle is localized in the oleoresin. Indian investigators reported that strong hypnotic or sedative activity was concentrated in the oleoresin fraction. This was decisive because the oleoresin was a complex mixture of weakly basic alkaloids, oils and lipids, waxes, pigments, resins, and many other plant metabolites. The work pointed later isolation chemists toward a fraction that ordinary alkaloid protocols could overlook. Okay, now this is the one that we just read. 1949, Vacca's clinical trial in essential hypertension. This pivotal clinical paper that brought Indian Rauvolfia research to a broad international medical attention. Vacca showed that a standardized root preparation produced a reproducible reduction in blood pressure. He was studying the plant, drug, or mixed constituents and not isolated reserpine. Okay, now here we go. So, pure reserpine emerges. 52 to 54. Okay, it's SIBA. They finally gave it a name. They isolated a pure crystalline sedative alkaloid through this bioassay guided fractionation, and they got reserpine. Okay, then SIBA introduced pure reserpine as Serpasol, initially for hypertension, trachea. So if I look up Serpasol, will it have its own Wikipedia article or no? Okay. All right. Formula and connectivity. 1953 to 1954. This was the molecular formula and connectivity. Several groups worked almost simultaneously on reserpine and reserpic acid. The accepted formula became C33H40N209. The formula rested on convergent evidence rather than a single modern mass spectrum. Combustion analysis for CH and N. Determination of 6-methoxy group. Titrometric equivalent weight. Analysis of crystal salts. Crystal density and unit cell measurements providing molecular weight information. What is his name? I don't know. Yeah, we're back. Oh, God. No. Okay, so um, so we're at. Yeah. So wait, where is the door? So this is the Dorfman paper. Dude, it's insane. They're like, you know what? You can't even have access to the. Um, because presumably, SIBA, when they started selling it, they had to get it from the plant. And the reason why they were investing so much was so that they could synthesize it. Or at least, I don't know. I mean, that's would be my guess. Okay. All right. Die Constitution des Reserpine. All right. So I obviously don't read German. So, but I guess what I was wanted to do was um, just see. So that's it. That's Yohimbi. So I guess they were the. So this was the first paper that really said this is what this thing looks like, I think. And that was in 1954. So wow, within 2 years. But did this had stereochemistry? That's probably the real question. Okay, so this, yeah, okay. So at this point they published what they thought was the connectivity, but without regard to confirmation. Actually, another aspect of this that's interesting is studying retrospectively the perspectives and hypotheses of something that, as far as I can tell, is pretty settled. You know, we know what the structure is, we know what it binds to, we know what the thing that it binds to does. I mean, it seems pretty closed at this point. But that's interesting. You know, it's like, what did people think at the time? Okay, so 1955 to 1959, we have a stereochemical battle and neurochemical revolution. Several laboratories published short communications attempting to assign the relative configurations of C3 in the E-ring centers. Whoa. Serotonin release as a possible mechanism of reserpine action. Previous communications have reported certain similarities in the physiological actions of reserpine, a tranquilizing agent, and serotonin, 5-hydroxytryptamine, a substance postulated to have a role in brain function. Wow. I mean, like at this time in the mid 50s, right? They don't know what's going on. Both compounds showed sedative effects in mice and potentiate the action of certain hypnotics by central mechanism. Why did they put it in glacial acetic acid? That's weird. Whoa, what? What? What the heck? Dude, why does this stuff just show up randomly? The potentiation caused by either substance is antagonized by pretreatment with a compound that blocks the effects of serotonin on smooth muscles and produces psychotic states in man. This is too funny, dude. That is hilarious. It is also demonstrated that administration of relatively large doses of reserpine to dogs markedly increases the urinary excretion of 5-hydroxyindole acetic acid, a major metabolite of serotonin. These observations suggested that certain actions of reserpine are mediated through the liberation of serotonin. I actually have no idea what I'm reading right now. I'm done reading this. I don't even know what the heck they're talking about, to be quite honest. How did they even know this? I'm gonna upload this and just be like, oh, wow. Boom. Dang. Dude. Reserpine, man. So in Woodward's paper, so let's pull up the Woodward. Does he Okay, here we go. By the summer, so he says by the summer of 55, the SIBA group allowed them to conclude that this was the structure. So you know, the written record might be a little bit different than what the insiders knew at the time or something. I wonder how they drew these. I mean, they didn't have computers, dude. How did they do that? All right, so which paper was this? I think I have this. Okay. Okay, wait. So, okay. So I need this paper. So Diassi. Oh, Schittler. Okay, so this is kind of like the post-mortem. This is like, okay, we're all let's get together and let's agree on this dang thing. That's sort of what this is about. Okay, so I want to read this paper. I don't know. Did I already download this? I don't know if I did or not. It's very possible that I did. All right, so the stereochem of reserpine, disterpine, and related alkaloids. All right, importantly, there's some important names on here. This guy, and I don't really remember, and I don't really recognize anyone else's name. All right. By early 1955, intensive structure studies on reserpine and disterpine (1A and 1B respectively) for these medicinal valuable natural. The task of elucidating the relative spatial configurations of the 6 asymmetric carbons remained, although the accumulated evidence already pointed to certain definite stereochemical features. Yeah, the task of elucidating the relative spatial configurations of the 6 asymmetric centers in both compounds remained, although the accumulated evidence already pointed to certain definite stereochemical features. Both alkaloids had been shown to possess a thermodynamically unstable environment at C3, and a cis relationship of the C16 and C18 substituents. While desterpine, whose chemical reactivity paralleled in every respect that of reserpine, had been interrelated with rauwolsine, it appeared that a critical study of the basic ring systems and the behavior of the individual skeletal substituents present in the alkaloids would lead to the information necessary for complete stereochemical assignment. Wow, this is an interesting way to compact. Yeah, that's a very interesting way to do the diagram. In view of the close relationship of disturbing with 3-epi-alpha yohimbine, the form epi-alloy yohimbane skeleton. What the? Whose DE ring structure was unambiguously cis, as suggested by Janet's conversion of Semper. So 2A. So you're supposed to look at this. So this is 1. This is 2A. Got it. But look, this is additional aromatics on it. That's interesting. The configuration of C3 was no means as clear. This is interesting. The sempervirine reduction, unfortunately, was of little diagnostic value on this point because of the uncertainty of the stereochemistry of catalytic hydrogenation in alkaline media. It became less so when it was discovered that a large-scale reduction led not only to the allo compound, but to some DL whatever. Okay, I'm getting lost, dude. This is extremely technical. Okay, maybe I skip that, and I'll just take his word for it that the story is. Is this translated? I don't think so. I don't think this is translated. So a lot of this stuff afterwards, I'm not gonna do. So I'm ready to start writing. I think I'm gonna um end it, go on a walk, and come back. Actually, should I go on a run? Maybe I'll go on a run. It's very nice out right now. Okay, peace out. That was awesome. Dude, that was so sick.